Alright guys, just give me 1 second. I am still trying to get my Instagram live set up over here. Because it's always hard to get both of these done at the exact same go. So give me 1 second. As I mentioned before, we will be talking today about, as the topic of this says, why it's important to educate your clients. So when I get Instagram set up, we'll get into the topic. Just give me one moment. What is going on with Instagram? There we go. Alright everybody, so once again, my name is Eric McGrew with Eric's Tree Service in Montrose, Colorado. Also Elevated Office Podcast and Elevated Office Videos, whatever, as you can see, it's become more than just a podcast. I do have more podcast episodes coming out. If you haven't heard the podcast, go check it out. You can find it on just about any podcast streaming service. So it's just Elevated Office, and there you'll find some back issues of content that you might like as well. Also, don't forget that we're doing the first ever Elevated Office podcast or Elevated Office live seminar coming up in February. So, late February. But today we are talking about the importance of educating your clients and why that's so important, especially for small tree service companies. So if you're in an area where you're competing with these like really big companies, Bartlett or whatever, then those guys are going to roll a lot of cells out the door just based on momentum of them being so well known as far as being seen around, their equipment looking nicer, them having multiple crews, and people are going to gravitate to them because they look like they are, a professional company. And that's just kind of how that goes. If that's what you're dealing with, it's even more important that you take just a few minutes and you really educate your clients. Now, I cannot explain how important this is. You're either going to listen to it and analyze it and think about it, or you're not. I can't change that, but I am one of the newer comers in town, relatively speaking, a few years versus like people who have been here for a decade. And what occurs is those guys are just as good as I am. We're different, yes, but they're just as good as I am. But I get a lot of sales now, and the reason I get sales is because my clients just tell me. They came up, they looked at the trees, they said, okay, we can do this. This is how much it'll be. We'll be here on this date if you choose to go with the program. And they leave. In like 15 minutes, they're done. And I come on and I spend on average about 45 minutes per client to do a bid. And yes, it seems like, well, I'm getting less done during the day because now I can't visit as many people. I mean, think about that. If it's 45 minutes plus driving, on average, I can get 6 or 7 people done without like running all stinking day long and running into late hours trying to do bids, right? But I have a very large success rate with my bids to work ratio. And most of them tell me, well, I talked to the other people. A lot of times they'll tell me they were even a little cheaper than you are, but you know your trees. The fact is that the other guys, because this is another topic we'll talk about, but I often recommend other client or other companies in town to have a bid set against me because I know that they're of my same general quality concept and pricing is, at least relatively on par. So I feel like the client will get a good service and they are supporting the value of tree work that it deserves if they go with me or the other client, right? The other tree service. But the problem is these guys are running on site. They're giving this quick bid. They hand out a piece of paper and say, contact us if you're interested, and they take off to the next bid. And what is occurring is the client feels underappreciated. Remember, there's a term that my father-in-law taught me that you guys have heard me use before, and it's so important I'm going to reiterate it. Don't forget what you didn't know. Okay, I know that sounds kind of like convoluted and things, but the idea is Our clients are not tree people. Most of them have no clue what a good tree service quality is. Most of them don't understand how quickly we can walk up and read a tree, because let's face it, this is what we do every day. And in all fairness, there are times we walk up and we miss it. We read a tree and we read it wrong. But if you're a good tree, guy or an arborist, then that's going to be a minimal time frame. However, the perception from the client, who is an uneducated tree spectator, who's not in the business, who doesn't do this day in and day out, they don't feel like you're giving their tree due diligence by walking up in 15 minutes, walking off with a bid in your hand. Okay? It's not that it's true, it's perception. It's all about perception. When you're doing sales and when you are running your business, the truth of the matter is that 90% of what we're doing is psychology. Now, it's true, we are manipulating people, but not in a bad way. Okay, we're motivating, we're inspiring, we're encouraging, and we are helping. If somebody walked up to you and you said, man, and let's say you're not very mechanically inclined at all, and you say, man, this thing's making this noise, and they walk by, and as you say it, they say, oh, it's this. You might kind of look at what they said it might be, but you might be incredulous because they didn't even hear the full conversation. Now, that may be a master mechanic, and he may know exactly what you're describing because he's taking in all the details, the model of the car and everything, right? The reality of it is, though, you're not going to give him much credence if he doesn't stop and kind of explain why he knows that's a good probability of what it is, okay? So when we're selling, it's the same exact thing. When we are selling out there, we have to make the client understand what our background is, what we know about the tree. And what I tend to do with trees, especially common trees in the area, like we have a lot of Siberian elms and we have a lot of narrow leaf and broadleaf cottonwoods, I will actually stop by and I will give them extra data on the tree. Not a ton, but I will give them extra data about the tree. And now they feel like I have a broad spectrum of education and knowledge to speak from about their tree. And even though it has no relation whatsoever to the tree that we're talking about on hand, or the problem, I should say, it does relate to the tree, but not the problem. Now they feel like this guy has an authority to speak off of, okay? So when you're out selling, if you want to be a progressive and effective sales arborist, if you're a small business owner and you are the sales arborist like I am, it's important that your time be spent in a way that you actually make it count for money. It's not, I hate to say it's all about money, but to a large degree it is, right? Time is money, especially as a small arborist company, because you're either working the crew or you're selling. And if you're not being successful at selling, you might as well be working the crew. But if you work the crew and you finish up everything and you haven't been successful at selling, then you're really in a pit, right? So remember, educating your client is not just, it's not a waste of time. Guys tell me all the time, well, I already know this stuff, and they don't need to know that. It's not about that. We're talking about, it doesn't matter if it's about it or not. What it matters is that the client feels like they have a reason to trust your judgment, and that they feel like they're getting their money's worth out of you, not just work-wise, but knowledge-wise. Because remember, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what good tree work is. They don't know what bad tree work is. All they know is that they're paying lots of money, and if they're going to pay that much money, they better trust you. And educating your client is a great way to help them have that trust and build that trust in you, okay? So if you're moving into that role, if you're already in that role, or if you are wanting to get into that role, then this is a key point for making successful sales. All right, guys? I know it sounds basic, it sounds stupid, it sounds simple, and it sounds boring. And honest, I get tired of repeating myself, especially when like I have 6 jobs that are all cottonwoods that I'm bidding. I get so tired talking about the basics of cottonwoods, because to me it's not interesting. It's just normal. It's like the simplest stuff that we learn about the tree, right? But each person that I speak to, most of them are new to this information. So they really need to trust you. Because if it's just dollar to dollar, they might find somebody cheaper. And if you don't educate them and you can't explain to them why you're worth the money, or if they don't feel you're worth the money, then why pay the extra money when they could go with a cheap guy that has no insurance and a beat up pickup truck down the road, right? So I cannot express how important educating your client is. And it also helps in the future as the job progresses. If something goes wrong with the job, like you get up there and the tree needs way more work than you could see from the ground or something like that, then they are more likely to pay you the extra money to do the extra work and trust your judgment because you've already proven your education level, than trying to prove that you're educated in that moment and that you're the expert and that they should trust you in that moment. You already have that basis, and they've thought about what you've said. They feel like they kind of know your level, and that becomes really, really important for them to make a good decision, okay? So, yeah, this is, I know, like, for most of you, this is not a super exciting topic, and I'm sorry. Business isn't always exciting. There's a bunch of nuance and details about all this stuff that is not exciting at all. But if you want to be successful in this industry and you want to be a successful medium or small business owner, this is a key to that, right? I think this is totally applicable to large companies too. However, unfortunately, when you get into large corporations and large companies, a lot of times they don't value clients like we do as smaller ones. So, you know, keep it in mind. Think about how you can apply it. Think about the common trees in your area, and then think about what facets of that tree are most common. For instance, out here, we have a lot of badly placed maples, and they have chlorosis all the time. Well, if they're chlorotic, then when I go on a job site and I'm talking to a client, even if the maple's not the focus of what we're talking about, I start to give them a few hints about their maple, about deep root fertilization and iron treatments, and they're like, yeah, I've noticed they've been a little yellow, and now they're all excited because they feel like they've gotten free advice from you, and it sells the job because you educated them on something. They feel like you were worth the value, okay? And most of the time they just call me back to do the service anyway, so I just gain more money on it. I upselled them without trying to upsell them. And that's another topic we can talk about in the future as well. So hope this was beneficial for you guys. Don't forget to go check out my sponsors, Weaver Arborist, Gap Arborist Supply, and Just Send It Saws. Also, if you noticed, I'm wearing, where is it at on this one? So I'm wearing the Bear Valley hoodie. Great hoodie. Honestly, I can't bring myself to climb or work in it. I am not sponsored by Bear Valley. I know him a little bit, and we've been kind of chatting back and forth, and I bought a few things from him, like the Alpha jacket and this hoodie and pair of glasses and stuff. And yeah, dude, it's super comfortable. So I use my hoodie and my Alpha jacket for sales arborist work. It looks super classy, and clients seem to think that it looks good on me. And then also I use the Alpha in really cold weather because it's fleece lined and I sweat so bad. I only use it climbing in the really cold weather, like 18 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever. So go give him a shout out, and don't forget, the first ever Elevated Office webinar is occurring. We are still working on getting it all together. It's going to be end of February, beginning of March. We need 50 attendees, $80 a person. You will get some gifts, plus there will be some giveaways. Please sign up. Let's make this happen. Share and spread the word, and I would love to see you all there. We'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye.